Bom dia. My presentation today is about sustainability in mega sport events. What I'll attempt to do here is to raise some issues that are not so commonly mentioned when discussing the planning, development and staging of sport events. The environmental impacts of mega sport events are one of the newest concerns of event organizers, sponsors, environmentalists and citizens alike. The International Olympic Committee was one of the first major sport organizations to include in their mission statement a commitment to environmental sustainability. However, the IOC, one of the most influential transnational organizations in the sports events industry, seems to have chosen to adopt a vision of sustainability that is limited to environmental protection. Well, by adopting such a position, the IOC has limited the capacity of the Olympic Games to promote a more holistic approach to sustainability. In following the Olympic Charter, for instance, organizing committees for the Olympic Games may restrict their actions to the management of natural assets, and therefore they can overlook all the important aspects in the development of sustainable events, of sustainable societies and lives. There has been an increased criticism within the academic and non-academic world to the real sustainability of mega events, particularly due to this narrow understanding of the concept of sustainability. Critics have raised concern over community displacement, financial burdens being transferred to taxpayers, the discontinuation of social projects, the uneven distribution of benefits within host communities, the post-use of facilities, just to name a few. But if we understand humans as a fundamental part of the natural environment, then notions of sustainability and of environmental impacts will have to necessarily address issues of social justice. As the UN document Our Common Future states, and I quote, "It is futile to attempt to deal with environmental problems without a broader perspective that encompasses the factors underlying world poverty and international inequalities." While this understanding of sustainability and of environmental impacts is inseparable from social and environmental justice and from a democratic access to goods and services, leads to another important position, that the notion of sustainability is not a universal concept, and it cannot be exported from one place to another without localized interpretation. There is a need, therefore, to question practices and solutions that are imported from developed to developing nations, where a high proportion of the population is poor and live under different cultural systems. Well, if we have a look now at the 2014 Football World Cup, we'll see that there are 12 host cities widely dispersed across the country who will be staging the event. While this situation clearly heightens the complexities of organizing procedures and policies that will be applied and adopted by all localities, while the matter becomes even more complex when the number of different government bodies is taken into account. It's 12 local government, 12 state governments, 1 national government, and the committees created within ministries to look over certain aspects of the event, plus FIFA and the local organizing committee. So how to align these different approaches to sustainability that each one can or may have into one integrated environmental strategy is obviously a complex task for the agencies involved in the hosting of the event, and therefore needs to be kept in mind when discussing the intricacies involved in the implementation of sustainable practices for the event. Well, in the meantime, in an official document, the federal government's position in regards to the Green Cup refers to stadia having environmental certifications, public transport being prioritized, the use of biofuel, availability of products with the organic label, and the promotion of ecotourism. Where is the social pillar of sustainability? Well, it is completely absent from the discussions, and therefore important social environmental questions such as the relocation of entire communities to provide the necessary space for the construction of facilities and venues. And the impact of these constructions on the social, cultural and physical environments of the regions are ignored. While on top of that, Brazil is constructing 6 new world-class stadia for the 2014 World Cup, and 6 of the remaining stadia will be or are already in the process of being completely renovated to reach FIFA requirements. But these requirements are based on a standard that fits developed countries and Western cultures. They're not necessarily ideal for economies of developing nations, where poverty rates are still high and consumer power is reduced. Well, in regards to the Olympic Games in 2016, the sustainability talk in official documents, both of the organizing committee and the IOC, is elusive and unclear, leaving a considerable margin for interpretation and maneuver. The sustainability section of the contract involved in the 2 organizations is a good example of such elusiveness, and you can read that in the PowerPoint presentation. So clearly, the inclusion of such a clause in the contract between the IOC and the organizing committee is a step forward, particularly if compared with arrangements between FIFA and the host cities of the 2014 World Cup. Nevertheless, it is still a weakly worded document requirement that does not place clear and decisive responsibility on the host cities to firmly and consistently act towards defined measures of sustainability in the planning, management and execution of the event. The contract is binding, yes, but because the requirements are not clearly defined in the document nor elsewhere, it is up to the host country to define the measures and strategies to be adopted and to what extent they will be carried forward in the planning and staging of the Games. It is not the responsibility or domain of the IOC, although some would argue that these transnational organizations have a global environmental responsibility to provide stewardship and therefore demand action from event organizers. So in sum, there needs to be a more concentrated effort, possibly initiated by major sport organizations such as the IOC and FIFA, to implement practices that focus on society as a unitary but heterogenic system that encompasses the natural environment and individuals, with their cultural, social, and economic needs taken into consideration. Environmentally sound sport events need to incorporate the notion of social justice and work under the premise that environmental issues are also social, and that the only possible way of achieving true sustainability is through practices that benefit the wider community, particularly the economically and socially marginalized. Thank you.